What's going on, guys? This is Damien from The Lookout, and today I am bringing you my set 20 tier list. Yeah, this is the tier list of all set 20 archetypes. It's that time of the year when we make tier lists. It's always super fun to do. Now that the ban list has passed, we can finally evaluate all of these archetypes properly, and let's just see where they land. But before we begin this video is brought to you by us, by Zenkai Showdown. We still have tickets left. Zenkai Showdown is going to be taking place on the 22nd of April in Poznan, Poland. It's going to be one of the biggest community events in Europe. We have insane prizes and we would love you to join us. So if you're interested, check out our links for tickets and the event in the description below. Now, roll the video. Okay, everyone, here is the tier list. God, I love doing this. Like I said, we're just gonna be super positive from now on. Let's try to enjoy this game. And what better way to be super positive and enjoy the game than just like ranking new leaders from like OP to trash. Yeah, okay, that sounds a bit harsh, but still, let's do this. I'm excited for this. So, tier 0, OP should be banned. Tier 1, meta defining, so these are the decks that will be either super prominent in the upcoming metagame or they will warp the entire metagame around them. So we'll see, you know what happens here. These are your highest win percentage decks, you know, like cream of the crop, basically. Then tier 2, very good decks. So these are, you know, these are your decks which can stand up to tier 1 decks, and you will see them topping here and there, but like they aren't, you know, tier 1. You know, they might take some top spots on some events, but they will not be as prominent as tier 1 decks. For example, SS4 Gogeta, Sin, Gamma, and Crimson before banning, you would call these ones tier 1. And then you can say like Golden Frieza has been showing up more and more, or like Transgita is showing up more and more, but it's not as prominent, or like Supreme Kai, you would put those like in tier 2. You know, they're not super dominant, they're not warping the meta, but they can top events and they do so. So that's basically tier 2. Tier 3 is your low casual decks. So these decks are, they're not even rogue decks, you know, they are just casual decks for locals on like mid to very low end. So like you can take these ones to locals, you can still somewhat perform well, but you won't be taking any big tournaments with them. Very likely you won't be doing that. And that's basically it, you know, they're not very good. And then tier 4 is like actual trash. It's actual trash. Before we begin, I wanted to add a 5th tier and just call it green. But I've told myself like, Damien, you're positive from now on. Like this game needs some positivity, so let's not do this. Otherwise, I would have put in a green tier 5 here and just dumped everything in it. Not everything, but green decks. Anyway, let's jump into this. Maybe we can make it like half an hour. Hopefully not longer than half an hour. So, let's go. First off, we are starting with one of my personal favorites, the Red Universe Free deck. Now, I don't know how many of you have tested this deck, but I did the how to play guide for this. Please keep in mind we don't have how to play guides for all of these. They should be out by the end of next week. So, Universe Free, it's fun to play. It's one of those, like, you can call them like copycat decks, you know. We've had multiple decks with the same idea of like you're gathering pieces, you're assembling them into something bigger. What works especially well in this one is it's super consistent, and it has a very, very good boss monster in the form of the Anilaza Z Battle card. Don't focus on the normal SR, that one is bad. The Z Battle card is great, especially when you put 2 robots under it, and then it gets like plus 10k. and then it's like 35k swings like twice, I think, 2 to 3 times, I think at least twice, and then like delete 6 things from the board. It's crazy. Or like at least 3 things. I don't even remember correctly at the moment. Anyway, it's fun. It's a very, very archetype based deck. It doesn't have a lot of room for flexibility, doesn't have its own dedicated unison, has a very, very strong Z deck core in the smaller Fusion and then Anilaza. However, it doesn't pack the punch. It just doesn't pack the punch that it should have, at least for tier 2. I can see someone taking this and performing relatively well at locals. I myself will try to get this deck and to take it to the Scrap Games locals where I usually play. But yeah, it's I think that it's not trash. I think that everyone who is calling it trash is a bit too harsh on this one. Like, it's not trash material. It has good enough tutoring and good enough payoffs to not be trash, basically. It's very consistent, but it's not like tier 2. So I'm putting this one into tier 3. It's a low casual deck. I would recommend it to many beginners, because like this is a very good deck for beginners, because like it incorporates all important aspects of a modern archetype. It's just not super strong. That's it, but it's great for learning the game and it's super fun. So tier 3 low casual decks. Then we have the one that is a bit controversial, because I really don't like this one, and you guys know that like the main period, oh my god, I'm saying like so much, that the main period when I am unhappy and negative is usually when I talk about green, which is my favorite color. So I took a look at this deck. I took a look at some gameplays with this deck, and unfortunately I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced that this one is actually good. Like, I keep saying like. Anyway, it's consistent. It is consistent. It's very consistent. It has like a 48 card deck size. It is a good boss monster. However, it lacks something here. It always lacks either a keyword or plus 5k here and there or something. It just lacks something always. So I don't think that it goes into tier 2 category either. I would put it in tier 3. Like, being honest, I think that it's better than the Universe 3 deck, but I don't think that it's a very good deck. I don't think that this is even a rogue deck. I know that some people swear by this deck being great. I just don't see it. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll give it a go and we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I will be convinced at some point. Now we have Invoker. By the way, if you want to check the deck guide for the Goku, how to play, we also have that one on the channel. The one that we don't have is the Invoker, the Android Invoker. I am postponing this how to play guide until I don't know when. I think that's gonna be the last one. I am terrified of analyzing this deck because I'm not a good Invoker player. I am really not a good Invoker player. That playstyle is way too advanced for me. But I have asked some very good Invoker players on what do they think of this deck, especially now after the ban list that did absolutely nothing. And the idea is like, this is good. Like, this deck is good. It's probably not meta defining. It's not, unfortunately, it's not going to be meta defining with everything else that's running around, but it is a very, very good deck. Saying that it's not is just like plain wrong. It lacks some things that the original Invoker has. For example, it has a red leader, so you cannot use like dimension magic with it. That really harms your defenses, but it's still a good deck. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to place it into tier 2. I think this is a tier 2 deck. I think the original Invoker deck is a lot stronger than this one, even with all of the restrictions that it has, but I'm not convinced that it is a tier 1 deck. I think that it's tier 2. I think it being mono red puts it a bit back in comparison to the multicolored original Invoker, and it loses some of its defenses. That's like the biggest issue here. It's not necessarily weaker, it's different, but it's different enough to where I would say it can't really compete with tier 1 decks. So that's just my opinion. This is the one that I'm most likely wrong about. Because I have no idea how to play this. Let's move on. Yellow Boo. So now we finally have a Boo leader in all colors. And the yellow one, we have covered it on the channel. I gave it a couple of more looks, especially with the new promo cards that showed up. I've checked out some builds on Deck Planet, and I'm still not convinced that this is good. Now that the ban list came and it didn't really touch Black Smoke, which just deletes this deck, and you have to survive until turns 4 and 5 with it. It's a bit easier to do that now, but still the deck has a massive engine. It has a green sized engine, so I don't see this deck really being stronger than tier 3. I think tier 3 is pretty fair for Boo. It has a lot of weaknesses. It's not proactive, it's super reactive, and if your opponent manages to get rid of your Boo chain, then you just lost basically. You're set back turns if that happens. So you need to establish 2 Boo chains at the same time. However, if your opponent sees you playing against Boo and they side another Black Smoke Dragon in, they will heavily mulligan for them, and once they hit your both chains, then it's game over. The deck is, nevertheless, good as a semi-generic yellow leader if you just ignore going with the chain and you're just focusing on very heavy draws. Then it's a lot better, which is why I wouldn't put it into like trash tier, but I don't believe that it's like tier 2. I don't see it topping any events. Invoker, I see topping events. I don't see it shaping the metagame. But Boo, I don't see topping events. So I have to put it in tier 3. However, I'm going to put it still above this one. Is it better than the green one? Well, it's yellow. It's better by default. But I'm gonna leave it like this. And now comes maybe the controversial one. Maybe. Android 18. How to play guide coming out later this week. 1 second, sorry. So, for Android 18, this deck is insane. I think that this deck is insane. I've been just wrapping up the how to play guide. I've made a deck prototype. I've checked all of its lines and play lines and synergies and everything. This one has that, to me, this one has that Crimson vibe where it can just explode on the turn that it wants to explode, which I found to be turn 4. Usually it's turn 4, because then you can get 2 mana back, 2 energy back when you use your Z leader's activate main and you play the Krillin. Yeah, you don't get, you get 1 back, but you have 2 left. This deck can attack so many times, and it really hurts when it attacks you. It really hurts. If you go into the Z leader and then you swing once, and then you use activate main to give it double strike, you play Krillin restands 1 energy, you have 2 left, you restand your leader, now your leader has double strike, you swing again, you swing with Krillin twice, and then you can, for example, you can either go into Android 18 for 1 energy, the SR 5 drop, and then you pay another one to play another Krillin, who is also dual attacker, I believe, so that's like 3 more swings. Or you use your last 2 energies to play Beast Gohan, and you restand your Z leader, who is now double striker, and then you attack again, and you attack with your critical Beast Gohan, and you bottom deck their life, and you do so much. When this deck explodes, it really explodes. Is it tier 1 though? Is this going to be the next tier 1 deck? That's a difficult one, because like still turn 4 is still turn 4, and you don't have as many generic pieces in this deck as you might have in some other generic blue good stuff leaders. So I would say tier 2 for now, maybe move it to tier 1 later. Then we have the Super 17. Super 17, it should have had more promise. There are basics, there are blueprints for a very good deck here, especially in the boss monster, and in the way that you use your 17s under your Super 17, and then it gains abilities, and you restand it, and it's buffed, and you're dancing between your Z leaders. All of those are like blueprints for something good. However, the deck really drags. It really drags. It needs a billion conditions to do something. All of the buff that its big hitters get are just temporary. They're just like for a single turn, which is baffling if you consider what other boss monsters do. It is fun. It is one of those like big brain decks. You sit down, and devising this one is like devising an actual android. So you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, if I do this and this and this with my androids, then I can do a whole bunch of things. It's fun. It's fun for players who like these types of decks. But is it good? Unfortunately, it isn't, because you cannot really go off until turn 4, and asking to go off on turn 4 with green, with red in the metagame, and all of the removals that red has, and your cards not having protection, it's not good. It's, once more, it's like tier 3. I believe that it is better than this one. I controversially believe that it is better than this one, the Goku one. Because there are hallmarks of something great here, but there are also hallmarks of something great here. No, actually Goku is the best one, because if you build it as a Fated Rivals deck, it's amazing. Then we have the big one, the one that everyone has been talking about, Android 21, the actually disgusting one, the one that's super dangerous, that can use your cards as energies, that can play its big things. A lot of people have been testing it live, testing it on Untap. A lot of better players than me are saying that, hey, this is nuts, this is crazy. Then you also have an equal amount of very good players who are also saying like, hey, this isn't really the best. However, I believe that this is definitely the only tier 1 deck right now, like not right now, from this set, that this is the tier 1 deck. This is the best one right now. It does a lot. it's blue. It has access to all of the good blue things. It's super dangerous. It can use your cards to play its own cards. It's scary. It's very, very scary. So I think that this is going to be the best deck coming out of this set, in this set basically, especially now that Bad Omen hasn't been touched at all, and you can run 4 copies. You can beat your opponent just by burning them. That's it. You basically passively beat them, burn them for 4 lives. Super crazy. So I think that, yeah, this is a tier 1 deck in my opinion. The next one, however, I have very, very good players swearing that this thing is tier 1 as well. That this is very close to Trunks Jita. That the deck is insane. That when you charge the Spirit Bomb, and now with cooler counter around, with Robotic Riposte. So when you play your field, Robotic Riposte immediately costs 1 less. You have Robotic Riposte. You have Vegito. You have a 20k leader turn 1. So if you're going second, you're swinging 20k, you're dealing 1 damage definitely. You have all of the yellow staples, plus you have a ticking clock in the form of the Spirit Bomb. And 2 amazing Z leaders. This one is also definitely tier 1. This one is definitely one of the better yellow decks. And we will cover that one next week, I think. The one that really surprises me is actually Cumber. Now, red is still super oppressive, and I think that red is very problematic for decks that need to go to turn 4, like Cumber. Cumber needs to go to turn 4 to win, but Cumber can give your opponent's card Servant, and Cumber can overlord them. So you can lock your opponent's cards in rest mode. You can get rid of them to draw. You can hit by a lot. You can play your SCR. You can play the big boss monster. There is a lot of value in Cumber. A lot of value here. And I think that this one is also probably either tier 1 or tier 2. So none of these are tier 0. Nothing is broken or should be banned. I honestly don't believe that even Android 21 is tier 0. But when it comes to Cumber, it's either tier 2, very, very high tier 2, or it is tier 1. And I remain unconvinced that Cumber is tier 1. With so much red running around untouched, is Cumber really tier 1? Well, you need to think of it like this. If you're playing against a red deck, as long as you can keep defending yourself, you can remove all of their cards. You can just, not a lot of cards have barrier in red decks, so you can just get rid of them. So I would also put him higher. I would put him like to tier 1, because Cumber is a great counter for Android 21. Like whatever they play, you can just easily give them Servant, get rid of them, draw. Cumber doesn't have a lot of battle cards out, so Android 21 doesn't get a lot of value from you. I think Cumber is pretty good, but is it meta defining? Will it be the next meta deck? That's the big question with Cumber. Supreme Kai is definitely meta defining. We are already seeing that. But is Cumber good enough for that to happen? I'm inclined to say that Cumber is tier 2. But like very high tier 2. Somewhere here, or maybe even somewhere here. This deck is insane. This deck is absolutely insane. Then we have the starter deck ones. I will just be super brief with them. Gohan is actual trash. It's don't buy this starter deck. I'm sorry, I said I'm going to be very positive, and as you can see, I'm trying to be very positive this entire tier list, but this one is just bad. It's just bad. It's permanent that says that you cannot include non-Universe 7 battle cards. Really harms the deck. It really harms the deck with like no charismatic villain, no Paragus, no fated rivals. Okay, you have some cool things here and there, but I think that this one is just genuine trash. I think that this one is awful. However, it has some potential, and I'm trying to be positive. And with that in mind, I would put it into tier 3. Otherwise, I would just throw it into trash. But I'll put it here because, like, hey, maybe someone can come up with something. And finally, Majin Vegeta. This one has a lot of potential. This one is super scary. If it connects with the Z leader, it's game over. It has a combo with Broly SCR, and players are just trying to make it super consistent. It can blow up the field, it can deal melee damage, it has cooler counter. This one is super scary. And honestly, just by the leader alone and everything else in yellow, I would put this one into tier 2. I definitely put it low tier 2 for this one. And now I just need to consider, is this everything? Because like, I don't believe that anything is tier 0 at any point. I don't think that anything is just genuine trash. I think they're all low casual decks. That nothing here is irredeemably bad. The only one that I'm thinking of is like Cumber. Is Cumber meta defining or is it tier 2? I would say let's go left to right, and if we are going left to right, Cumber is definitely tier 1.5. Cumber is super close to being tier 1. The rest is, I think, just fine where it is. I would maybe even put Android 18 a bit above Invoker, because technically it's easier to play. It's definitely easier to play. But I love Invoker, so I'm gonna put Invoker above. These other ones, I think this is okay. Maybe you put it like here, but nah. I would honestly put this one into trash. Like, I get to put something into trash, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm just putting it here. So I think I'm happy. And yeah, I think this is the tier list. That's it for the video. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this tier list? What is your personal BT20 tier list? And please consider the BT20 archetypes. We're not looking at like BT20 meta, we're just looking at everything that came out in BT20, the leaders that came out. I'm looking forward to reading all of your personal BT20 tier lists. I think that the time when we make tier lists is super exciting, and it's super cool to see everyone's opinions. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read all of your comments, I try to respond to everything. I love our little community, and while you're here, hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us a lot. Share the video. Let's try to grow this community even further and spread our love for the game. This has been Damien for The Lookout, and I'll see all of you in the next video.